Hi folks, welcome back. I hope you had a great long weekend. Our next revision topic that we're going to look at is division and differentiation in human cells. And what I've done something slightly different this week to see, and you can let me know via Teams whether you prefer this. I've already pre-drawn the diagrams to basically see if we can speed up the videos for you or not. I'm very aware that some of you will prefer having the length of the videos, so it's like the same, kind of experience within a class, whereas some of you may find that the videos are a wee bit too long. So you can let me know by the end of the week what kind of strategy you prefer, okay? So before we start, I want to kind of look at the terminology of this section. So the main kind of terms that we're going to come across is these two somatic cells and germline cells, all right? So the first thing we're going to look at is, and we predominantly will talk about germline cells within this section because this is where the new information comes in relation to cellular division. But when we talk about somatic cells, as it says here, somatic cells are any cell in the body other than the cells involved in reproduction. So when we talk about the cells that's involved in reproduction, we're obviously talking about the sperm cells and the egg cells. And the thing is, the somatic cells, so what we'd say is they're already differentiated. Okay, so yes, they've originated from stem cells, but they've got their specific functions. Okay, so the whole point is that they already have their role. So as we talk about when a cell has a defined structure and function, so if we use, say, a sperm cell as a kind of classic example we would use, that already has a defined structure, so it has a tail and a head, and it already has a defined function, which is obviously to travel to go and find an egg and fertilise the egg, okay? However, that role, so that structure and that function is different, so it's differentiated to, say, a liver cell or a cardiac cell, i.e. a heart cell, all right? So the big thing is that, as I say, when we talk about somatic cells, we're talking about every other cell in the body apart from those egg cells or sperm cells, all right? And we'll get on to how the difference is between cellular division between these two cells later on as well. So the next one is germline cells. It says so germline cells are gametes, so sperm or ova. Ova is kind of the medical term for an egg cell, and the stem cells that divide to form gametes. Okay, so what we class that as the gamete mother cell. So every cell has to have an originator, so it has to originate from somewhere. Okay, so when we talk about these germline cells, we're talking about a reproductive cells, excuse me. So we're talking about the sperm cell and the egg cell, but also the stem cell that it would originate from. So some of you might remember a diagram your teacher would have shown you when we're looking at the male reproductive system, and we're talking about how spermatozoa, so how sperm mature within a man's testes. Okay, so when you're seeing that spermatozoa, that is basically that sperm cell coming from the gamete mother cell, the original germline cell, and maturing to become the sperm cell. Okay, but both are classed as germline cells, so that's still a germline cell and the original, so the original mother cell that it comes from. When we talk about gametes, it's just another term for sperm cells and egg cells. All right, so technically you now have two terms for a sperm cell and an egg cell, or three if you want to count them. So sperm cell is one term, germline cell is another term, and then gamete is another term for the reproductive cells. Okay, so I found this wee diagram on the internet actually. I don't know whether you'll find it silly or useful. So the whole idea here is that here is our germline cell. So here is our sperm cells and here is our egg cells, okay? And essentially we're going from what's classed as a germline cell to a somatic cell. So this sperm cell is going to meet this egg cell and it's going to fertilise, okay? But what's going to happen is during fertilisation, obviously, that is going to go from being an embryo to a fetus to a newborn baby, okay? And what's going to happen is that fertilised egg is going to grow when it goes into an embryo and a fetus. It's going to grow into a little human, and every cell in that little human, so every cell in wee Jimmy, is still going to be either a somatic cell or the germline cell. okay? But the majority, the larger percent of cells will be somatic cells, because that's what makes up the tissues or the organs of the body, okay? So a heart cell or a cardiac cell is still a somatic cell, and there is millions of those heart cells and cardiac cells that will join together, that will create the tissue, and there's loads of layers of that tissue that will join together, which will therefore create the organ, which is therefore our heart. And as we say, the heart is part of that cardiac system, and that cardiac system is part of the whole organism, okay? So wee Jim Smith, okay, is predominantly somatic cells, but still has sperm cells, and his sperm cells are those germline cells, okay? So an organism, predominantly somatic cells, but still has germline cells, and those germline cells are either the original stem cell, where these reproductive cells mature from, or the actual reproductive cell, the sperm cell, is also classed as the germline cell, okay?